The crisp $100 bills sat perfectly stacked inside the open safe, a deliberate trap set by a man who had forgotten what it meant to trust. Marcus Wellington had everything money could buy: a penthouse overlooking Central Park, cars that cost more than most homes, and a reputation on Wall Street that made grown men nervous. But somewhere between his first million and his 50th, he'd lost something far more valuable: his faith in people. The day he decided to test his housekeeper, Elena Rodriguez, would become the day that shattered everything he thought he knew about human nature. Marcus had been burned before. 3 housekeepers in 2 years, each one stealing something they thought he wouldn't notice. The first took jewelry, the second forged checks, and the third had the audacity to use his credit card for a shopping spree. After the last incident, Marcus installed cameras in every corner of his penthouse, hired a security consultant, and built walls around his heart higher than the skyscrapers surrounding his building. Elena had been working for him for 6 months. She came with impeccable references, always arrived early, and never complained about the exhaustive list of tasks he left for her. She was in her mid-40s, with kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled, and calloused hands that told stories of a lifetime of hard work. She barely spoke unless spoken to, moved through his home like a whisper, and left everything spotless. But Marcus couldn't shake his suspicion. Nobody was that good, that honest, that pure. Everyone had a price, a breaking point, a moment when they'd choose themselves over doing what was right. He'd seen it in boardrooms, in his own family, in every corner of his gilded world. Why should his housekeeper be any different? The plan formed on a gray Tuesday morning. He would leave the safe open, not obviously, but just enough. $10,000 in cash sitting there like bait. He'd watch from his office through the security cameras on his phone, and when she inevitably took the money, he'd have his proof. People were predictable. People were selfish. People always disappointed you in the end. He positioned everything perfectly that morning before leaving for work. The safe door was ajar, the money visible to anyone who walked past his study. He'd told Elena he had an important meeting and wouldn't be home until evening. As his driver pulled away from the building, Marcus opened the security app on his phone, his jaw tight with anticipation. The morning passed slowly. He watched Elena move through the penthouse, dusting, vacuuming, organizing. She cleaned the kitchen, scrubbed the bathrooms, and made his bed with military precision. Around 11 o'clock, she entered his study with her cleaning supplies. Marcus leaned forward, his heart pounding. This was it. The moment of truth. Elena moved around the room, wiping down surfaces, organizing papers he'd deliberately left scattered. Then she stopped. She'd seen the safe. Marcus could see her freeze, her eyes fixed on the open door and the money inside. His finger hovered over the screen, ready to call security. But Elena didn't move toward the safe. Instead, she glanced around the room, worry creasing her forehead. She pulled out her phone, her ancient, cracked screen phone that Marcus had noticed but never thought much about, and made a call. He couldn't hear what she was saying, but her expression was anxious. She hung up and did something Marcus never expected. She closed the safe door carefully, tested it to make sure it was secure, and then continued cleaning as if nothing had happened. Marcus stared at his phone, confused. Maybe she was waiting. Maybe she was smarter than the others, playing the long game. He decided to continue watching. The afternoon brought another surprise. Around 2 o'clock, the building's doorman called up to his penthouse. Elena answered, and minutes later, a young woman appeared at the door, clearly Elena's daughter. Based on their resemblance, the girl looked to be college age, and even through the security camera, Marcus could see she'd been crying. Elena hugged her daughter, and they sat together in the kitchen. The girl was speaking rapidly, gesturing with her hands, and Elena listened with the patience of someone who'd weathered many storms. After their conversation, Elena wrote a check from her own checkbook and handed it to her daughter. The girl hugged her mother tightly before leaving. Something twisted in Marcus's chest. He watched Elena return to her work, her shoulders slightly slumped now, moving a little slower than before. She cleaned until 5 o'clock, exactly as she always did, and then she did something she'd never done before. She left a note on the kitchen counter. Marcus left work early, racing home with a feeling he couldn't quite name. He found the note written in Elena's careful handwriting. "Mr. Wellington, I found your safe open today. I closed it to keep your valuables secure. I hope this was okay. Also, I apologize, but I need to request an advance on next month's salary if possible. My daughter's college lost her financial aid due to a paperwork error, and she needs money for next semester by Friday or she'll have to withdraw. I know this is unprofessional to ask. If you can't do this, I understand. Thank you for your consideration. Elena. Marcus sat down heavily at his kitchen counter, the note trembling in his hands. He pulled up his phone and watched the footage again, this time seeing what he'd missed before. He saw Elena close the safe, not with reluctance, but with relief. He saw her write a check to her daughter, a check that probably represented a significant portion of her savings. He saw a woman who had walked past $10,000 in cash and hadn't taken a penny, even though she desperately needed money. Then Marcus did something he never did. He looked deeper. He pulled Elena's employment file, her background check, her references. He learned that she worked 3 jobs to support her daughter's education. He learned that she'd been widowed 5 years, ago when her husband died in a construction accident. He learned that she sent money back to her elderly mother in Mexico every month. He learned that she'd never missed a day of work, never asked for anything, never complained. And Marcus Wellington, the man who trusted no one, who believed everyone had a price, who had built an empire on the assumption that people were fundamentally selfish, put his head in his hands and wept. He cried for the cynicism that had poisoned his heart. He cried for the loyalty he'd failed to recognize. He cried for the goodness he'd been so determined to disprove that he'd almost missed it entirely. And he cried because a woman who cleaned his toilets for a living had shown him more integrity in one afternoon than he'd seen in decades on Wall Street. The next morning, Elena arrived at 7 o'clock as usual. She looked surprised to find Marcus waiting for her in the kitchen, still in his bathrobe with coffee brewing and tears still fresh in his eyes. "Elena," he said, his voice rough. "I need to apologize to you." She looked confused. "Sir? Yesterday was a test. I left the safe open deliberately." He watched her face, saw understanding dawn, followed by hurt. "I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong." Elena stood very still. "I would never steal from you, Mr. Wellington. I know that now, and I'm sorry it took me setting a trap to see what was right in front of me all along." He slid an envelope across the counter. "Your daughter's tuition is paid. All 4 years, and there's a little extra for expenses." Elena opened the envelope with shaking hands. When she saw the check, she gasped. "I can't accept this." "You can and you will. And there's more." Marcus pulled out another envelope. "I'm tripling your salary effective immediately. I'm also setting up college funds for any other children you might have, and a retirement account in your name." "Mr. Wellington, this is too much." "It's not enough. It could never be enough." His voice broke. "You taught me something yesterday that I should have learned a long time ago. You showed me that goodness still exists in this world, that integrity isn't just a word in a business ethics textbook, that some people, the best people, don't have a price." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I was just doing what my mother taught me. You do the right thing, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching." Marcus smiled through his own tears. "Your mother raised an extraordinary woman, and your daughter is lucky to have you as an example." What happened next became the foundation for something neither of them expected. Marcus didn't just help Elena, he learned from her. He started volunteering at the community center where she spent her Sundays. He set up a scholarship fund for children of working-class families. He began evaluating his business practices through a new lens, asking not just if something was profitable, but if it was right. Elena became more than his housekeeper. She became his friend, his conscience, his reminder that wealth meant nothing if it wasn't used to lift others up. Her daughter graduated with honors and went on to medical school, fully funded by the man who had once tried to trap her mother. Years later, when Marcus was asked in an interview about the turning point in his life, he didn't talk about his first million or his biggest deal. He talked about the day a housekeeper walked past an open safe and chose honor over opportunity. He talked about the woman who had nothing but gave everything, who worked 3 jobs but never compromised her values, who showed him that the richest person in any room isn't the one with the most money, it's the one with the most integrity. The safe in Marcus Wellington's study remained closed now, but his heart had finally opened, and it turned out that was worth more than all the money in the world.